This video is only possible thanks to viewers like you. To support the channel and get more, go to patreon.com/optimisticduelist and subscribe. Link in the description. This video series is going to have massive spoilers for both Steven Universe and Utena, so scope out the doobly-doo for ways to watch them if you want to get caught up first. In the US, you can watch Utena right on YouTube for free thanks to its publisher, Nozomi. I also have to warn you that Utena is not for the faint of heart. Sexism, bullying, and even incest and sexual abuse are dealt with straight on, and even though Utena handles all of these issues incredibly well, hard to believe from an anime, I know, but trust me on this one, they're not always easy to watch. I'll try to talk around that stuff in this series, but still, spoiler and content warnings ahead. I should have known to give Steven Universe more credit from the start. The reveal that Steven's mom, Rose Quartz, was also the same pink diamond that invaded Earth was one of the best twists I've seen in years, especially since one of the most intense elements of foreshadowing for it was a recurring visual motif drawn right out of one of my favorite shows of all time, Revolutionary Girl Utena. This storybook silhouette art style isn't just pretty to look at, and Steven Universe isn't just making a Shiki reference here. In Utena, it's a visual metaphor, meant to put us in the heads of characters who can only half remember the events being depicted. In both shows, the style is a shorthand for confusion or lies. SU is full of references to Utena, so I always knew it was a reference. I just never really thought it went deeper than a visual callback, for no other reason than that I didn't think too hard about it, honestly. So in this video series, I'm going to cover some of the biggest parallels between the two shows, hopefully making both easier to follow. Especially Utena, which is full of understated character beats and cryptic symbolism, making it notoriously difficult to understand. Hopefully, this'll give some of you Steven Universe fans something to think about and dig into while we wait for new episodes. Please, Cartoon Network, we're dying! And maybe even convince you to give Utena a shot in the meantime. And for those Utena fans out there, hopefully this'll convince you that Steven Universe is a true heir to the show's legacy, and very worth your attention and time. As a quick primer, RGU is a 39-episode plus a movie anime about princes and princesses, witches and gods, and having fencing duels under the mysterious upside-down castle floating in the secret dueling arena approximately 1,000 stories up from the Forbidden Forest in your school's backyard. So, regular high school. There's a bit more to the franchise, but we're only talking about the show and movie versions here, partly because they're the most well-known, but mostly because they're the versions helmed by acclaimed director and all-around symbol daddy Kunihiko Ikuhara, whose work you probably know from a little show you might have heard of called Sailor Goddamn Moon. Side note, Steven Universe showrunner Rebecca Sugar is apparently as big an Ikuhara fan as I am. She's got character figures from his 2015 anime Mawaru Penguin Drum sitting around during an old interview for her own show, which I don't desperately need at all. Background now established, let's go deeper. The heart of RGU is the friendship and budding romance between the titular revolutionary girl, Utena Tenjo, and the mysterious and reserved Anthy Himemiya. By challenging and beating a student council member in a sword duel in defense of her friend's honor, Utena wins Anthy's hand in marriage as her Rose Bride, the prize in a secret school tradition known as the dueling game. The elite cabal of duelists then challenge Utena, hoping to defeat the champion duelist and take back the right to marry Anthy, gaining both her complete subservience and the mysterious power to revolutionize the world. But Utena doesn't care about any of that. All she sees in Anthy is a normal girl, being used and hurt by the people around her, and so she's moved to protect her from the other duelists. From then on the surface level, their dynamic is basically the same as Ruby and Sapphire's. Sapphire is wise, but reserved to the point of aloofness, and Ruby is simple and direct, but able to commit to sudden decisions that Sapphire often doesn't see coming. Which doesn't feel like a coincidence, considering how Ruby and Sapphire's designs look suspiciously similar to this drawing hidden away in a shot of the Utena movie. But there is an important difference. One could argue that Utena and Anthy's relationship isn't romantic, at least in the show. The movie's alternate universe retelling of the story would quite clearly disagree with you, but you could. And that's because the story told over RGU's 39 episodes isn't about a committed relationship like Garnet, but instead the story of two girls who struggle to understand who they are and what they want in a world that's deliberately designed to keep them from understanding those things. A world whose shadows we can find all over Steven Universe, particularly in Homeworld. That world is the campus of Otori Academy. The world of Otori Academy is founded on fairy tales. To understand the rules the story plays by, you first have to understand the basic myths that inform it. And the story that serves as the foundation of the setting is the tale of the Rose Prince. It goes like this. Once upon a time, the world was full of light, thanks to the godlike Prince Dios, who saved all of the world's girls and rendered them princesses, leaving them to rely on the prince as a god who would provide safety and stability for all of time. But Dios was sealed away by a witch, his own little sister. Because there's a romantic connection between the prince and his princesses, she was the only one he couldn't make a princess. And as the story goes, a girl who cannot become a princess is doomed to become a witch. As a result, the Prince Dios disappeared from the world, along with his light, and the world which had grown to depend on him fell into darkness. Now, this story is told to us by shadows, and so it isn't quite true. Just like the stories of Pink Diamond and Rose Quartz, there are important details missing. For example, while the prince was sealed away from the world in the story, he lives in Otori even now. The prince and his little sister, the witch, now live in Otori Academy as Akio Otori and Anthy Himemiya, although Akio has lost both the prince's godlike power and his noble, princely heart.
When she became known as a witch, Dios the prince vanished from this world.
In Otori, time is convoluted and dreamlike, and the siblings live in its campus as quasi-eternal gods. Akio spends eternity manipulating the school students into competing in dueling games in order to try to regain his lost power. But despite the inaccuracies, the myth of the Rose Prince is embedded deep into Otori's culture, propping up the validity of Akio's rule, as well as the social mechanisms through which he controls people. The roles built into the story. The prince is remembered through his sword as having absolute power to solve problems, and through his noble heart as tirelessly morally righteous. This makes him desirable to princesses, who have no power to slay monsters or solve problems on their own, but they may reward his efforts with a kiss. This gives them a more passive and emotional sort of power. The witch is remembered as a villain who stole the prince away from the world. She also wields an emotional brand of power, but hers is ill-gotten. She doesn't just motivate the prince through her innate goodness, but instead manipulates his good-hearted nature with half-truths and lies to selfishly get what she wants, bringing chaos and darkness in the process. Notice how, as far as this myth is concerned, only the male prince can rightfully hold power.
You are just a girl, aren't you? That is why you can never have that power. If you had it, you could do anything. But the way that power shall be used is my decision.
A witch might have discretion on when to use her own power, but being seen as a witch means being scorned by others for having lost one's purity.
You're being rude.
Get out of my way.
These are the implicit rules of the world, and they influence the social structures and relationships of the cast. But of course, people are more complicated than fairy tales. Our heroine, Utena, is herself a fairy tale princess. She was saved by Prince Dios long before the story began. She received a ring from the prince, which she hoped would lead to their marriage. But so impressed was she that she decided to become neither a princess or a witch, but instead herself a prince. And yet, her greatest struggle is in overcoming the powers that rule the world, which tell her directly that being a prince is inherently at odds with being a girl.
Swords don't really go with dresses, do they?
Now let's switch over to Steven Universe. Much like the Prince, Homeworld and its diamonds exist as corrupted shadows of their former selves. Homeworld itself is broken, falling apart, and the loss of Pink Diamond has left its leaders lost in grief and guilt. Like the Prince, Homeworld's myths about the diamonds are presented through silhouette, depicting them as omnipotent and righteous sources of light. Hell, White Diamond literally emits light. Homeworld's roles are less mythical and more like government-assigned jobs,
An agate terrifies, a laugh is terrified.
but there's still a social system designed by intelligent architects, where power is invested not in individuals, but in particular roles and functions the system recognizes and accepts. And in both Otori and Homeworld, the consequences of failing to comply with your assigned role are similar. To reject Homeworld's system is to lose your power within it. Sapphire is a rare and valuable gem, but once she rejects Homeworld's underlying rules, her only option is to escape its world entirely. Ikuhara describes this idea as central to Utena, saying, "Those who reject Otori are, conversely, rejected by it as well. This is the nature of systems. The moment you reject them, you're forced to realize that they're the very ground you're standing on." And this rule applies all the way up, even to a prince or a diamond. Which brings us to Pink. Like Utena, the tension Pink Diamond experiences in Homeworld's social system is built into her very design. The poofy shorts and long pantaloons evoke the archetypal image of the prince, equating her with the highest image of power in RGU's world. But her poofy hair and distinctive shoulder pads share a striking similarity to the uniforms of Otori Academy's schoolgirls, the weakest members of its system. And Pink Diamond is caught in a paradox of power. She has one of the highest standings in Homeworld, making her for all intents and purposes a god in its system. But she can only reap the benefits of that power by playing out the role a diamond is allowed. This role doesn't come naturally to her, so in the eyes of the other diamonds, she's a mere girl, a princess, weak and dependent, perpetually in need of indulgence and rescue. Like the prince's little sister in the story, the systems that defined her world had been set by a higher authority than her, and did not care for her wants and needs. Once her desires came into conflict with that system's goals, her only choice was to reject them and their system. But Pink was too important to simply escape Homeworld like Ruby and Sapphire, so she had to go further. She had to escape herself and disappear from the world entirely. The Shadow Girls are the only real exception to Otori's social system. We meet them late in Utena's story as mere schoolgirls existing at the margins of the plot. They run the school's theater club, a place the characters only visit once in the entire tale. But from their stage, they exert over everything their unique power: storytelling. Their shadow plays frame every single episode of the show, their stories confusing us even as they guide us to the ideas at each episode's roots. Like them, Pink Diamond exists mostly as a shadow cast on the wall, a figure who misleads and confuses us. Like the prince, the princess, and the witch, Pink Diamond, the tyrant, was only ever a character in a play, a shadow of a real person. In short, she was a lie. But it wasn't a lie she told on her own, was it? Next time, let's talk about Pearl. Thanks a ton for watching. The script essays for the next 4 episodes are already available in full to my patrons, who will also be getting early uploads of every video. My channel is largely focused on Homestuck, but I'm far from done with Steven Universe or Utena even after this series is done, so keep an eye out. That's all for now, and until next time, keep rising. Huge thanks go out to my patrons for making this video possible. If you want to help support the channel and come join us at our awesome and growing Discord community, feel free to join us for as little as $1 a month. You can also find me on the r/Hiveswap Reddit and Discord. That's all for now, so thank you again, and as always, keep rising.